So as a Gentile, I'm here to profess, black people, you are Israelites, you are the chosen ones, you are a prestigious people. Your history is in the Bible.
Here's a pastor speaking on the history of Israelites. Take a listen.
And so many people are blinded to the scriptures, blinded to historical truth, and they're led by their heartstrings, but it's not actually fact. One of those things, again, that people have been led for so many years is thinking that the Ashkenazi are in fact descendants of Shem. And we've discovered that the Ashkenazi are in fact the synagogue of Satan. They're the descendants of Japheth. They're Turkic Mongols from the Khazarian region that converted to Judaism in the 6th and 7th century. These are the things that we've discovered over the past few months. Those teachings came across in exposing the rotting stick of Israel and the synagogue of Satan that are in our archives. But then if I'm going to go forth and say, well, you know, those that say that they are Jews but are in fact not, but are the synagogue of Satan, and the Ashkenazi are in fact not Jews, they are sons of Gomer, Japheth, they're not even Shemites. Many people have come to me and said, well, who are the real Jews then? Where are the Jews and what's going on? I mean, we understand that we're Joseph's multicolored coat and we're exiled into the nations. But if Yahweh is gathering the whole house of Israel, all 12 tribes, and the stranger that wants to graft in and join, then where are the tribes and what's going on? So I think it's really important to address this subject because, as I said, 92% of the people that say that they are Jews today are in fact Ashkenazi, sons of Gomer, so thereby are the synagogue of Satan, they who say they are Jews and are not. So who are the real Jews? That's the question that has been posed to me many times over the past months. And there's really two answers to that question. And I'm going to be thorough today because I need to be thorough, because when you speak about this, it's going to upset a lot of people. So we're going to have to take our time in the scripture. So bear with me. Two answers to that question. One, I already addressed in the rotting stick of false restoration and the synagogue of Satan teaching. And that is, who are the true Jews? You see, the ancient Egyptians were a Kemetic people. They were black. In 1965, the former president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, said he couldn't respect the present Jews in Israel because they left Israel black and they came back white. Because they were Caucasians when they returned, a Turkic Mongol Asians from the Caucasus Mountains, the Russian steppes. Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. I am black but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. I am black. The Hebrew word there is shachar ha-anya. It literally translates to, I am dark-skinned. Strong's number, and I don't use Strong's numbers very often, but there's going to be pushback. Strong's number 7838, shachar, from Strong's number 7835, dusky. So the word shachar means dusky. And if you look in the concise Oxford English Dictionary in the 10th edition, dusky means darkish in color, euphemistic of a person black and dark-skinned. And in the Old English Dictionary, it says tending to blackness. Song of Solomon's 5, verse 11. His head is as the most pure gold, meaning it's royal, it's regal, he's kingly, he's wearing a crown. His locks are curly and as black as raven. King Solomon, Melech Shlomo, was black. And only blacks have locks, not Caucasians, no matter what Rapunzel or what was the other one? Goldilocks would say, right? Look at Bathsheba in the Hebrew. Bet Tav Shin Bet Ain, daughter of Sheba. She was the black daughter of Sheba, whose line goes back to Sheba, who was the son of Cush. Cush, who produced the Nilotic black races. Look at this, Bereshit, Genesis chapter 10, verse 6. And the sons of Ham, Cush and Mitzrayim and Put and Canaan, and the sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Savta, Ramah, Savtecha, and the sons of Ramah, Sheba and Dedan. And now you're going to say, well, if that's true of Solomon, what about Melech David? What about King David? We know that he was an Anglo because he had ruddy skin, right? Isn't that what the scripture says? Of course. He was Caucasian. No. 1 Samuel 17, verse 42. And when the Philistine looked out and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, ruddy and of fair countenance. And then you can just move on. But I just don't want to move on. Because when you look at the Hebrew for ruddy is Adomi. Adomi, and it's spelled Aleph, Dalet, Mem, Nun, Yod. And it means reddish black, as in reddish black soil. The reddish black soil connected to the land. And if you don't believe that, Genesis chapter 4, verse 10, Bereshit 4:10, and he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's dam, blood, cries out to me from the ground. So now here we've got the wordplay. Dam is blood, Adamah is ground, Adomi is ruddy. We're talking mahogany in color, reddish black. Malcolm X, what was his nickname? Red. Detroit Red. Why? Because he was ruddy in his appearance. He was called Detroit Red. He was mahogany ruddy in appearance. So we have to dig in further, because if King David was an Ashkenazi, white Jew with a reddish complexion, he would have been described as Laban, an albino, but he wasn't. So King David looked more like Malcolm X than he did King Henry VIII, right? But I mean, the DVDs we give our children, right? Oh my goodness, like you were saying, the Israelites have British accents, right? My goodness, it's outrageous. But look at ancient Egypt hieroglyphics, and they are ruddy. The Egyptians have got ruddy black skin, mahogany skin, reddish black complexions. Even the Ethiopian Jews, they're called the Falashas, meaning those that are black. Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 10. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshippers, the daughters, my dispersed ones. That's the Queen of Sheba and her sons migrated and dispersed to Ethiopia. Lamentations chapter 4 verse 2. The precious sons of Zion are comparable to fine gold. Verse 8, their visage is blacker than coal. And the concise Oxford English Dictionary, the 10th edition, tells us that visage is a poetic literary of a person's face with reference to the form of their features. A person's facial expression is what? Blacker than coal. You start to connect the language and you start to see. Bereshit, Genesis chapter 9, verse 27. We have got the Ashkenazi sons of Japheth that have infiltrated into the land and are what? They've got the whole world convinced. The whole world convinced that they are sons of Shem. But look what it says in Bereshit chapter 9, verse 27. It actually tells you that Yahweh, who is omnipotent, it is his will because he has actually deceived them into doing this. They are so deceived into doing this. Look at Genesis 9, 27. Elohim will entice and deceive. The Hebrew word there is patah. Patah. He will deceive Japheth, Ashkenaz, the sons of Japheth, and he will dwell, that means Ashkenaz will dwell in the tents of the Shemites. Is that what's happening today? Has he deceived the Ashkenazi so much, those from the Russian steppes, the Caucasians, he's deceived them so much that they're actually dwelling in the place where the real Shemites should dwell? Genesis 9, verse 27. You see, Yahweh is the one that has deceived. He has enticed Japheth. Patah, deceived, enticed. He's deceived and enticed the Ashkenazi Jews into believing that they're the Jews, and they've built the Zionist state of Israel today. And Delilah made Shimshon Samson sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks off his head, and she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. You see, Samson was the first Rasta. He was a Negro lion fighter, similar to the African Maasai tribe, Judges 14:5 and 16:19. You see, Samson tore a lion apart as he would a young goat. And as a Nazarite, he wore 7 dreadlocks. He was mahogany in body color, just like Malcolm X, and his visage was blacker than coal. He was a Negro, Lamentations 4, 7, and 8. And this is really hard for people to see in Scripture, because predominantly it has been the Caucasians that have been in charge of the Scriptures, right? For millennia. Lamentations 5:10, our skin was black like an oven. Job 30, verse 30, my skin is black upon me and my bones are burned with heat. Deuteronomy 28, Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And Yahweh shall bring you into Mitzrayim, Egypt again with ships. And the way of which I said to you, you shall see it no more again. And there you shall be sold to your enemies for slaves and female slaves, and no man shall buy you. And that is what happened to the regal class of the house of Judah. And I want to give you a brief history. I won't go into it too much, but I can't just make that statement because there'll be people that will push back. But I want to give you a brief history on slavery. I was just amazed, I got to tell you. I mean, when you come to America and you talk to people about slavery, you can talk to black people about slavery, white people about slavery, and they'll give you all this history on slavery, and it only goes back to the 16th and the 17th century. And you're like, don't they teach you the history of slavery? Why? Ask the bloody question. Why are they only teaching you the history of slavery as far back as the 16th and the 17th century? Why are they only going that far back? Because they don't want you to go farther back than that, because then you'll actually find out the truth. But from the 16th and 17th century, we'll teach you about slavery. You've got to go further back, and you've got to understand and question, why do they do this throughout the whole of America, in all the public schools? Why do they only go back as far as the 16th and the 17th century to talk about slavery? We've got to go further back than that. Because Islam designed infernal slavery, and then the Ashkenazi Khazars, those who say they are Jews and are not, are the ones that marketed it, and the regal Negro nomads exiled from the kingdom of Judah were the main recipients of it at the hands of the indigenous black Africans. Because you've got to understand, the regal class of the house of Judah came down from Israel, and they came into the land of the black Africans. And the black Africans resented the regal class of the house of Judah in their land because they had laws, they had customs, they had civility, and they were a regal class of Negro that came down into Africa. And later on, it was the Ashkenazi, the Islamic slave traders as well, that then worked together with the indigenous black Africans to enslave the regal house of Judah. This is what we've got to understand, but you've got to go back before the 16th century to understand the roots of it. So we're going to see, as we dig into this, where this slavery came from, because it was really a system that was very, very well crafted. There was Islamic masters, and there were white Ashkenazi Khazar ship owners. There were the buyers and the sellers. And they're not going to fill you in on all of this, but really you've got a 4-tier system. Number one, you have the Negro nomads that were exiled from the kingdom of Judah. Number two, you had indigenous black African hunters that resented the regal Negro nomads that had come into their territory with their own customs, with their own laws that were different and would not assimilate into their tribal culture. They were their own tribe. They were the regal house of Judah. And number three, you had Islamic trappers that worked with the indigenous black Africans to trap the regal Negro house of Judah. And then you had them sell them to the Ashkenazi ship merchants. Let's keep switching the identity to hide the people. Why don't we just keep renaming you? Are you Negro? Oh, no, you're not Negro. No, you're colored. No, you're not colored. You're African American. And this is what they name you. The slavers name you this. Do you see how African American is a misnomer? It's a misnomer. Don't check that box. It's not true. So again, we've got the 4-tier system. Number one, we have the regal Negro nomadic class that are exiled from the kingdom of Judah. They are their own royal tribe in Africa. Then, number two, we have the native black African trackers. They're going to track them down. And number three, we have the Islamic trappers, because between 650 of the Common Era and 1900 of the Common Era, 10 to 20 million people were enslaved by the Arab slave traders. Over 20 million enslaved Africans were delivered through the Trans-Sahara route to the Islamic world. Can you get your head around that? That's not even touching the Americas. Over 80 million more blacks died at the hands of Islam en route. And number four, we have Ashkenazi Khazar Jewish ship merchants. And of course, the Portuguese and the British Ashkenazi were the main buyers. Islam and the Ashkenazi, those that say that they are Jews and are not, were the main sellers. Does that make sense? You've got to dig into this further. We have the 2 tiers right there. We have the Islamic trappers, and then we have the Ashkenazi ship merchants. You see, in the 1930s, it was an established fact that the regal class of Negro nomads exiled from the kingdom of Judah, that they resided in Songhai, in Mali, in Ghana, in Kenem, in Bornu, in the empire, and within the Onadu forest of Dahomey south of Timbuktu. Communities complete with Aramaic Torah scrolls. On page 90, From Babylon to Timbuktu, it says this: the black Jews had an advantage over the African tribes. Now, this is going to tell you why the native indigenous black Africans worked with Islam to trap the house of Judah and sell them to their Ashkenazi ship owners that were also Portuguese and British Ashkenazi ship owners. And that's the history we want to see. Why did this happen? Page 90. The black Jews had an advantage over the African tribes. They carried their culture. They carried their history, laws, and written records with them. This assured them a constant precedent for the development of a higher social organization. Because of the stability of the black Jewish culture, the Jews were not absorbed into the autochthonous population. In fact, the Jews absorbed some of the native tribes. The Jews made use of every opportunity. They were an industrious and skillful people. In the Jewish Ghanaian states were found kings, princes, governors, generals, secretaries, treasurers, revenue agents, judges, architects, engineers, doctors, historians, language interpreters, mathematicians, jewelers, sculptors, masons, carpenters, painters of art, goldsmiths. There were leather workers, potters, armorers, saddlers, blacksmiths, agriculturists. Do you think the indigenous blacks resented the regal, Negro, nomadic class of the House of Judah? And do you think they wanted to get paid by Islam? And do you think Islam wanted to get paid by the Ashkenazi Jewish ship merchants? And then you get to your transatlantic slave movement. But don't start at the ships on the west coast of Africa. Do you know how many blacks in America have been lost to Islam? It's outrageous. That's not your tribe. Your tribe is Judah. Muhammad's tribe enslaved you. Why would you convert to Muhammad's tribe when you're of King David's tribe? Don't convert to the tribe that enslaved you and then sold you to Ashkenazi ship merchants. More black Negroes have been lost to Islam in the 20th century than any other believing, Bible-believing group. It's outrageous because they don't want you to know who you really are and what tribe you're from, but you're not from Muhammad's tribe. Never were. Never were. You are a regal Negro class from the royal house of Judah. It's outrageous to me. Islam is not the black man's religion. It's for those of the Banu Hasham clan of the Quraysh tribe. That's who it's for. It's not from the tribe of Judah. Never was, never will be. It was never the religion of the Negro nomads in Africa because they were exiled from the kingdom of Judah. In Joel chapter 3, verse 6, it talks about these indigenous black Africans in collusion with the Ashkenazi because they were selling the Negro house of Judah to the Greeks. And who did the Greeks? The Greeks, they invented democracy, didn't they? Didn't they just? You see, Africans weren't selling their own people. They were selling a tribe that had encroached upon their land a higher educated, regal class that had judges, coppersmiths, goldsmiths, and all of this, and they did not assimilate in, and they wanted their stuff, and they wanted to get paid by Islam, and Islam wanted to get paid by the Ashkenazi ship merchants. The Igbo tribe of Africa, they're Jewish. If you were to look, just look at old maps of the African slaving maps. There's an old map of, I think it's Guinea in maybe in the 1720s, 1730s. There's this old map, and it's called a Slave Coast map. Look on that. It's the Slave Coast map of Guinea, 1736. And you look on the West Africa map of 1747, and it says right on the West Africa map of 1747, Kingdom of Judah. Right there on the map. On the 1747 Slave Coast map, Desert of Seth. Well, who was Seth? He was Adam and Eve's third son after the death of who? Abel. Desert of Seth, right there on an African slaving map. Luke chapter 3, verse 38, we're talking about the genealogy of Yahusha from the tribe of Judah. Verse 38, the son of Enosh, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of Elohim. But by 1771, the very same map, even with the same cartographer that did the map of 1747, all of a sudden, by 1771, they got wise to it. And there is no kingdom of Judah no more on that map. Disappeared. Same cartographer. Somebody got to him, right? Why would the same cartographer remove the kingdom of Judah from the 1777 map, 1771 map, that was in the 1747 map? Why would he do that? You see, you've got to go further back, because the more we go along this timeline in this day that we have, people don't understand what has gone on in the past. And we are making the very same mistakes as we come to this apocalyptic time of days that we're living in. What's the number one slaving country today? What's the number one country that America is economically, politically in bed with? The number one slaving country in the world today, Saudi Arabia. Our whole currency is connected to a slaving country that enslaves women, children, and men from all over the world. And they say nothing. And they're funding our politicians. And you don't think this message is relevant? Because people just, let's just stick to, safe and secure. Meanwhile, we're all going down the street to destruction. Do you really think they care what color your skin is? They just want to enslave you all. But they don't want you to really tell the black Negro in America what tribe he's from and who truly enslaves him.
Looking at Pew Report, most Black Americans are Protestants. While a majority are American-born, 12% hail from sub-Saharan Africa and 11% are from the Caribbean. Africans were practicing Christianity long before they were forced to learn the European version of Christianity. The foundation of European version of Christianity taught in the Black community has been rotten from the beginning. The history of the Black church is one of resilience in the face of systemic racism, but it has also perpetuated certain ideologies and practices. The Christian faith occupies a complicated, often racialized place in the history of Black people all over the globe because of how it was abused by white colonists and slave traders to subjugate Black people. Christianity was a double-edged sword for African Americans. On one hand, white Europeans wanted to use Christianity to make slaves docile and obedient. On the other hand, Africans adapted Christianity for their survival and liberation. The role of Christianity in shaping societal beliefs and narratives cannot be understated, especially when considering its influence on the portrayal of religious figures and the dissemination of information. When I delved into the reasons behind the release of Black Jesus icons or the Pope's prayers to the Black Madonna, I kept seeing the history of whitewashing in religious imagery. The depiction of Jesus and other religious figures as white has deep roots in European art and colonialism, perpetuating a narrow and often inaccurate representation that has had significant social and psychological effects. The reclaiming of these icons, like Black Jesus, can be seen as an effort to challenge these dominant narratives with religious imagery. Throughout the centuries, Christianity has indeed been used to justify various forms of oppression, from the subjugation of indigenous peoples to the support of slavery. The failure of the church to always uphold truth can be seen in these historical injustices. Great majority of these Black ministers of the cloth have been preaching what these white supremacist seminary schools told them to preach. I mean, really, there was a time during slavery when the enslaved people weren't allowed to read, period, let alone being able to read from the Bible. And when they were allowed, they had to read from the slave Bible. The influence of seminaries and theological training on religious leaders is a significant problem. The doctrines taught in these institutions often shape what is preached from the pulpit, and historically, many of these seminaries were indeed aligned with white supremacist ideologies. This has had a lasting impact on the messages conveyed to white, Black congregations and the ways in which Christianity has been used to justify discrimination and inequality. Too many of these so-called Black ministers over the years have been doing a great disservice to the Black community. Most of these ministers are too afraid to rock the boat, telling the truth about the Bible being Black history. Then the rest are too busy pimping the congregation of their money or don't care to know the truth. The Black church needs ministers who are willing to teach the whole truth of the Bible. Some Black scholars and teachers have pointed to scriptures such as Lamentations 4:8, Job 30:30, and Lamentations 5:10, which describe the Israelites as having skin blacker than coal or black like an oven. These interpretations suggest that the original Israelites were Black, and that today's African Americans and other Black diaspora populations may descend from them. Zephaniah 3:10 and other verses reference people of faith coming from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, further supporting the connection between Black populations and ancient Israel. Over the years, there have been some discussions that many of the enslaved Africans brought to the Americas were not just Africans, but exiled members of the House of Judah. The teachings have outlined a four-tier system in the transatlantic slave trade: regal Black nomads, exiled Jews from Israel, indigenous African tribes who allegedly resented and captured these exiles, Islamic slave traders who helped facilitate the trade, Ashkenazi Jewish ship owners who allegedly financed and managed transport. It's argued that Islam played a key role in the African slave trade, and that modern Black conversions to Islam represent an alignment with the very religion that participated in their ancestors' oppression. According to this view, Islam is associated with the Quraysh tribe, while Black Americans are said to descend from the tribe of Judah, a lineage linked to King David, Solomon, and Yahusha, Jesus. The Igbo people, one of the largest ethnic groups in Nigeria, have long claimed a historical connection to ancient Israel. This belief is rooted in oral traditions, cultural practices, and linguistic similarities that some scholars and members of the community say point to Jewish ancestry, possibly tracing back to the tribe of Gad, Zebulun, or Judah. Many Igbo customs resemble Old Testament laws, including circumcision on the 8th day, observance of clean and unclean foods, ritual purification, and mourning practices, all of which are similar to ancient Hebrew traditions. Some Igbo also claim descent from Israelites who migrated southward after the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel in 722 BCE. During the transatlantic slave trade, a significant number of enslaved Africans brought to the Americas were Igbo. Historians note that early European slavers referred to parts of West Africa as the Slave Coast, and some 18th century maps label regions of Igbo land as the Kingdom of Judah. Maps from the 18th century, such as the 1747 Slave Coast map, allegedly identify an area in West Africa as the Kingdom of Judah. By 1771, Similar maps no longer include that label, which some interpret as an intentional erasure of historical truth. The belief is that public education systems and mainstream religion have hidden this history, only teaching slavery from the 16th century onward, ignoring deeper roots in biblical and African history. Today, a portion of the Igbo population continues to practice a form of Judaism, separate from Christianity and Islam, observing Torah laws, keeping the Sabbath, and celebrating Jewish festivals. Their movement has gained global attention, with Jewish communities in Israel and the US recognizing them as a lost tribe, though formal acceptance into mainstream Judaism remains limited. Years ago, I recall reading an interesting book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil, where the devil talks about how the church has done a great job of helping the devil. In the book, the devil makes a striking observation about the church. The devil states, "The church has done a good job of not allowing Christians to think or question religious doctrines." I totally agree. Throughout the years, the church hierarchy has definitely enforced strict obedience and discouraged people from critical thinking or questioning of religious doctrines. This suppression of independent thought has contributed to a sense of docility and acceptance of one's circumstances, rather than challenging the status quo. But the good thing about the day and time we are currently living in, there is a lot more access to information. People that choose to know the truth can find it, if they are willing to do the work. Hope you find the information in this video informative. Feel free to like, subscribe, click on our membership button, and join, share, and comment. Thanks for watching.